let me be abundantly clear. I thought there was insufficient support during the pandemic for people who were self-employed, and spent a lot of time, indeed, in my own constituency, trying to get support for individual people, whatever their employment was, but particularly those who were self-employed, the hoops you had to jump through in order to get support. You're doubly, distressed on the basis that you have long COVID. And the reality is trying to get back into employment is going to be hugely difficult if you're still suffering from long COVID, and trying to get back into self-employment as well. Although the one good thing is at least you can pace yourself in a slightly different way than being in a rigid kind of work environment. But it really does depend on what you do. And therefore I can't generalize about, whether that's easier or not. You're absolutely right, though. Local authorities can be creative and innovative in their local area. We've been encouraging our local authorities to look at creating jobs, to create apprenticeships, to help where we know the labour market is quite tight, in retraining people, in also recognising that people may well be underemployed, that people will choose to work part-time, some will choose to work from home, and to make that environment much easier for people to do. So that's about connectivity, it's about support, it's about looking at different ways of working. It's also looking at the council's procurement. The council spends a huge amount of money locally, but in many cases they spend it on big companies that are out with the area. Can they do something more local? Can they support local self-employed people or local businesses, and use the spending power they have to drive change on the ground? But I think we're entering a new world here, and the reality is we need to find the right kind of support that will help people, both self-employed and others, going back into the job market, and harnessing their talent and creativity. And we've not got there yet. But you're right, local authorities can do things very much at a local level that will help their communities.
Thank you, Jackie. Handing over to Alex then. What would you have to say?
Yeah. I mean, not a huge amount to add to what Jackie said. I agree with all of that. I mean, I think you'll find that you won't find anything really in this discussion that Jackie and I largely disagree on. But a couple of things. Firstly, I'm sure Jackie will remember with horror what those days were like when it was clear that lockdown was coming, and we were being deluged with people who were worried about laying people off, who were worried about even salaried, employed people wondering, what was going to happen to their jobs because they knew that their hospital, where they were going was shutting down. And then suddenly there was this massive gasp of relief when Rishi Sunak announced furlough to pay people's salaries who were employed. And then people forgot, oh, hang on, a third of the workforce are actually self-employed, more than that. And then it took a week for that initial package of, well, submit your HMIE return from last year and we'll work out what 80% of that was, and we'll sort you out for it. But that didn't work for everyone. Remember, this is a Conservative government that for years have been suggesting to people that they become self-employed and make themselves directors of their own companies. And there was nothing for them. There's still nothing for them. So yeah, I mean, it was insult and injury after insult and injury. And that's also been made true in the COVID support grants that local authorities have been handing out on a discretionary basis. The interpretation of the rules in some cases by some local authorities has been crackers, and yet there's been no redress and certainly no sanction on them for so doing. So no, I agree with everything that Jackie said, but it's certainly unfinished business. It's not something we're going to forget about, and I wish you well, Jill.